Yeah, well, we'll just see how long this goes. Okay. Of Snowball's chance. She is lovely in her youth, in the tangles of her hair, the roundness of her cheeks. She clenched her gloved hand over the neck of her patched-up winter coat and laughs, then turns and speaks softly into my ear. Thomas, promise me. I wake up from another dream about Julia. That's 2 now since I've been in Paris. Thankfully, I'm still in a seated position, and I'm not lying face down, drooling on this absurdly soft leather bench. The office waiting room for the executive marshal of the Musée d'Art Moderne is as grand as one would expect. The walls are lined with sketches from Matisse, Ard, and the gang. A love letter from Ezra Pound and is framed next to a lesser-known Vermeer. Any one of these pieces would warrant its own room in our little gallery back home. Here, they serve as window dressing for those waiting, a waiting room that is made exceptionally challenging on this luxuriously welcoming bench worthy of a great many naps. Perhaps I should just close my eyes and just lay down. When Executive Marshal Gateau comes to greet me, he will find this Southern American at that, fast asleep, my snoring resonating in the capacious hall. In a soft French voice, Mr. Gateau will lean over to me. Monsieur, wake up, you are drooling all over the floor. And like a true Huckleberry Finn, I can snap my suspenders and yell back, why'd you wake me? Couldn't you see I was napping? So this is the impression that Marcus would wish me to set on this diplomatic journey. Our gallery is lending the Musée d'Art Moderne a large collection of our Sams. Sam is an old African-American artist from North Carolina who recently climbed the ranks of the series art community. The Musée d'Art Moderne is putting on its first exhibition of Southern American artists, and we are lending all of our Sams to help champion this historic event. Monsieur Larson, said Mr. Gateau, walking toward me from one of the adjacent hallways. Mr. Gateau is a short, older man, sort of a cherub with wrinkles and red plastic-rimmed eyeglasses, and although I wished he had a mustache, he didn't. Mr. Gateau, I said. Yes, please, come in, René. I must apologize to have left you waiting for so long. On occasion, I must appease the donors. I'm sure you understand. Yeah, that I do. Thank you. Although I was worried about falling asleep on this bench, he said. Oh, that bench is famous for napping. He pointed to where I had been sitting and smiled and agreed, and the two of us walked down the hallway into his office. We are very sad to hear about Marcus. Has his condition improved? No, not really. He's getting treatment, but it's not likely to have any effect. Maybe give him a few months, but there must be some hope. Otherwise, why try? He said. Yeah, there's a chance. Yes, it happened before. It's small, but yes, there's a chance. Marcus was supposed to make this trip. He is exalted in all the art communities. He was the first African American to be curator of the Whitney in New York and has been one of the most influential minds of the art world for the last 30 years. It is widely understood that he is living in a small southern town now because he chooses to. 6 weeks ago, he was diagnosed with lymphatic cancer, and the treatment has made it impossible for him to travel. That's why I'm here, in Paris, taking the place of my dying mentor. Have you been to Paris before? Mr. Gateau asks. Yeah, once. You will join us for the St. Valentine's Gala tonight, he said. I can't imagine that I would allow myself to miss something like that. Are you able to bring me a tuxedo? We can procure one for you. I brought my wedding tux. My mother is afraid that I will stick out amongst the French aristocracy, but I think I should be fine. Tux is a tux. Oh, you're married. Divorced. Happily, for all parties. We began discussing the terms of the art loan. The insurance, the insurers, the care, the travel of our pieces. He had some notes on the descriptions of Sam's work and some questions regarding Sam's life. He even begged for me to convince Sam to come to Paris, and I assured him that would not happen. I took Sam to New York for a gallery showing, hoping to make the man a little money, and although he sold more than we could have ever imagined, the magnitude of the city, the volumes of the people were just too much for him. He's also terrified of planes and boats, so a Parisian John was kind of out of the question. We concluded with a handshake and a kiss on each cheek, not first, and I gave him a jewelry box painted by Sam. Mr. Gatto was thrilled. We talked briefly about the gala this evening before saying our au revoirs, and I left the museum and walked back to the hotel room. I began looking for her in the multitude of the faces I passed. It's been years since I thought about Julia. It's strange that I would think about her now. Would I even recognize her if she were to rush by me on the street? We made a promise to each other 15 years ago that we would meet at midnight in Paris on Valentine's Day, 2014. It was a silly promise, made in the throes of young lust and never expected to be kept. I've forgotten about it, until now. It's just a bizarre coincidence that I just happened to be here on the agreed upon day. It's silly to think that the fates have destined me to keep this childish agreement. I'm here to work. Tonight, I will attend a gala at the Musée d'Art Moderne as a special guest, no less. I will be surrounded by the most passionate art enthusiasts in the world. I will not be standing alone like a fool under the Eiffel Tower surrounded by tourists. Yet here I am, searching for her face in the crowds. I can't help but think, maybe after all, I am here. When I was 19, I would scrape enough money to go together to visit friends going to college in New York, and I met Julia at a dorm room at NYU. My friends were her friends, and we all went to bars in the area that would cater to the underage drinking crowd. It wasn't long until Julia and I drifted from our circle, becoming enamored with one another. It began snowing around midnight, and we left a bar on Christopher Street. I helped her get to her feet on a patch of ice, half a block away from our friends. They began throwing snowballs at another group of college kids. Julie and I hid behind a large Buick, trying to avoid detection. We thought we were safe until somebody bombarded us with a coordinated attack. We cowered under the coat, and in that darkness, close for the first time, we kissed. Later in her apartment, on some other trip back to the city, we huddled under a blanket and talked softly so that her roommates wouldn't hear us. I think it was then that we agreed to meet in Paris at midnight on Valentine's Day 2014. The year after, Julia slowly receded from my life, and we wrote a few letters, but eventually we were replaced by others, and we hadn't really talked since. I hadn't thought about her until arriving in this city the day before Valentine's Day, the day before we agreed to meet. She's infested every thought since, and I can't stop the romantic fantasy or debate the possibility that she might be here too. Maybe she had forgotten as I had. Maybe fate had sent us this way. Is it even possible? Am I in this great city filled with a history of my heroes, yet I still only think of Julia? And if she would be here tonight amongst the tourists, huddled against the cold, looking for a boy she knew long ago. These thoughts carried me from the museum to my hotel bed, where I plopped down exhausted. And for the first time in a long time, I closed my eyes, hoping I would dream about Julia. I woke up in a panic, thinking I had slept through the night and missed the gala. Nope, still early in the evening. Plenty of time to eat, shower, shave, which I do nervously, cutting my face. But I dress and arrive to the gala slightly self-conscious in my southern tuxedo. Mr. Gatto greets me immediately. "Thomas, welcome!" He then whispers in my ear, "Oh, girl, just tucks my plant." And then more loudly, "Let me introduce you to..." The next hours are a blur. Handshakes and introductions to societies in all different regions, discussions of new artists, arguments abounding on the merits of controversial new work, another handshake, another smile. More than a few apologetic attempts at French, some history of Southern American folk art, of which most think that I'm an expert, a description of Appalachian boiled peanuts, of which I am certainly an expert, and so on and so forth until the night went on, the ticking clock ticking closer to midnight. In between handshakes and salutations, I thought of Julia. Maybe she was already there, waiting on a fool's hope that I may show up, wondering if she would even recognize me. Another handshake. A wealthy widow telling me stories of her belated. Another thought about Julia. We are young, and the snow is sticking to her hair, and I run my ungloved, cold hand through her thick, dark tangle of hair. Then I am back at the gala, laughing at some joke I kind of get. Eventually, I stop talking and recede to the walls to look at the art. The greatest modern works have hung here at one time or another, and as happy as I am that Sam will hang here, I can't help but think he will be out of place. I'm afraid for the first time that he will be mocked. Have we raised him up to just be ridiculed? I come to a painting of a saint of some variety. A giant standing in a pool of water between two cliffs. Animals walk across his shoulders from left to right. New York will be hung here, a woman says to me. I'm the curator for the Southern American exhibit. Sam's New York is going to hang here. It's one of my favorites of his. Sam is regarded by a curator in Paris? I still can't believe that his work will hang here, I said. His store is next to the mechanic my parents went to. My brother and I could play at Sam's while the car was in the shop. And now you've brought him, she said. Marcus brought him here. I know Marcus. We met in Berlin. I was very sad to hear that he is ill. I'm sorry. Thank you. I wanted to talk about something else. This is an interesting piece. I don't know the artist. It's a placeholder. It's only up for tonight, so there isn't an empty wall. Tomorrow, Sam's piece will go there. I like this one, I say. I'm embarrassed to say, but which saint is this? Oh, it's St. Christopher, historically depicting Christ across a river. This changed it a bit. Ha! Of course, Christopher. I laugh. Is something funny? She says, I love St. Christopher, I say. She looks at me strangely. From the corner of my eye, I see a couple of latecomers standing at the entrance, wiping fresh snow off their overcoats. I check the time. I have 30 minutes until midnight. I turn back to the curator and say, please excuse me, I have something very, very foolish to do. So like a fool, I trot out in the snow and I gallop towards the Eiffel Tower, embracing my destiny. That great monument for sentimentalists and romantic, that symbol of foolishness towers over the city, lit up, a beacon to lost lovers, and I am running down the streets of Paris, chasing midnight, hoping a girl would keep a promise that she made to a boy she barely knew 15 years ago. Yet here I am running! The great fates have brought me here, and they must have done the same for her. Perhaps she's running as well, sliding on those icy sidewalks. So I arrive 5 minutes before midnight, breathing heavily in the soft falling snow. The lights from the tower illuminate all the faces that have come to kiss and hold hands under the steel curtain. I pace in circles. I look for a solitary figure, a woman in her mid-30s with round olive cheeks and dark thickets of hair. I catch my breath on a bench nearby and I brush off the snow and I sit down. At midnight, the tower lights begin to flash. I look all around. I don't see her. I imagine her standing behind me. I imagine her placing her hand on my shoulder and whispering in my ear, I didn't think you'd remember. For a second, I almost believe it. Minutes pass and soon the space under the tower is empty. The occasional couple passes through, but if Julia were here, I would see her by now. I laugh at myself. I really did want her to be here. I really thought she might have been. I stand up against the cold that has woven itself into my knees and brush the snow off my wedding tux. I walk away feeling silly. I walk in some random direction and turn down some various cobblestone streets until I'm lost. I find a small bar with old men arguing at the counter. I order a glass of wine. I seat myself by the window, looking out at another gust of snow adding layers to the parked car and the storefront awnings. A group of kids come running down the street tossing snowballs at one another, their laughter echoing off the buildings as they dodge and throw. The old arguing Frenchmen stand up and cheer from the doorway until a stray snowball almost hits the men, forcing them back to the safety of the countertop. They start arguing again, and I watch the young group run off down another street, and their laughter slowly receding into the city.